The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are some of the most influential texts in human history, shaping not only the Christian faith but also Western civilization. But a critical question remains: are they reliable? Can we trust their accounts to accurately describe the life, teachings, death, and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth? Are they history or mythology? Fact or fiction? The books of the Bible can be grouped into two broad categories: non-historical and historical. From the table, we can see the book of Genesis is a non-historical book or a metaphorical and philosophical book. However, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are historical books, or more specifically Greco-Roman biographies. Historical books like the Gospels and the Book of Acts document real people, places, and events, like a modern recorded news event.
Good evening, the breaking news.
Non-historical books, like Genesis or Revelation, use symbolism and metaphor to convey deeper truths rather than recording factual accounts. When 9/11 happened, we saw it live, every moment unfolding in real time. Years later, documentaries and books analyzed the event. They focused on influential people, overarching themes, and the global impact. In ancient times, people couldn't watch live events on TV as they happened. History was passed down by word of mouth, then written down for preservation. To keep the attention of ancient audiences, writers used documentary-style biographies.
The legions marched for 7 days, arriving at the river an hour before dawn, a maneuver previously thought impossible.
These biographies focused on important people, events, and moral lessons, known for the period as Greco-Roman biographies. Here are some modern versions of historical biographies written at the same time as the Gospels' accounts of Jesus. The Gospels follow this same documentary biographical style, focusing on prominent people, events, and moral lessons of the era. Greco-Roman biographies were the most recognized, widely accepted, and authoritative historical records available to us in the ancient world. Let's compare two ancient historical biographies, one from Plutarch's Julius Caesar and the Gospel of Mark, both written around 75 AD. The style of both works are Greco-Roman biography. These are the common characteristics agreed upon by many Christian scholars such as Dr. Richard Burridge, Dr. Craig Keener, and the atheist scholar Dr. Bart Ehrman. Ancient biographies functioned much like a courtroom applying legal reasoning, or the scientific methodologies used in presenting a paper. They selected specific, decisive, and relevant events rather than focusing on exhaustive and non-relevant background information as modern recordings can do today. The four main features of Greco-Roman biography are moral insights, eyewitness accounts, public speeches, and themes. Moral insights represents the psychology and character of the individual, which was the driving force in their life's mission. For Caesar, Plutarch's moral insights center on leadership and ambition, qualities that can elevate a ruler toward Rome's honor and success, or corrupt them when driven by personal glory and power. The writers of the Gospels used the same historical method, revealing moral insights through Jesus' teachings and sacrifice. Where Caesar sought peace through violence, power, and the destruction of enemies, Jesus teaches peace through non-violence and to love one's enemies. Where Caesar consolidates power to preserve Rome and himself, Jesus deliberately relinquishes power, refusing divine intervention even when it could save his life. The moral insights are his teachings and sacrifice. Greco-Roman biographies were primarily based on eyewitness accounts as a record of history. Caesar's life was remembered by those who fought alongside him, governed with him, and witnessed firsthand his rise and fall. A continuous chain of living eyewitness testimonies used by historians Suetonius and Plutarch. The main eyewitness accounts are therefore his soldiers and officials. Similarly, for the Gospels, Jesus' eyewitnesses were his disciples and followers, who presented living and named eyewitness testimonies from multiple and independent communities. This is verified by even hostile witnesses later in history. Where Caesar's closed inner circle wrote for reputation and career, Jesus' wider independent circle of eyewitnesses told the truth of what they saw even if it risked their own death. primary source of eyewitness accounts was from public speeches. Caesar addressed his inner circle of elites to secure power for Rome, himself, and his legacy. Whereas Jesus' teachings were delivered to a wide-ranging audience, rich or poor, healthy or sick, proclaiming the coming kingdom of God to all people. Public speeches, then, are common to both. Caesar mainly addressed the Roman elites, while Jesus spoke to all people with his teachings, debates, and sermon. Finally, the major themes of each biography bring their stories to a conclusion by revealing their ultimate meaning within ancient historical writing. For Caesar, his defining themes are power, betrayal, and empire. For Jesus Christ, the defining themes are his crucifixion, resurrection, and atonement for humankind before God. Let's look at Greco-Roman biographies in their historical context. Jesus Christ lived from 0 to 33 AD. The Gospels followed soon after from 60 to 110 AD. And Caesar from 100 to 44 BC, just decades earlier. Together, they sit within the Greco-Roman historical tradition used by historians for over 1,000 years. The red bar represents Plutarch and roughly 140 other Greco-Roman historians writing in the same biographical tradition. The standard way history was recorded for nearly 1,000 years. Those other authors include Tacitus writing about Nero, Suetonius on Augustus, Arrian on Alexander the Great, Josephus on King Herod, Herodotus on Xerxes, as well as other historians like Cassius Dio, Polybius, Diodorus Siculus, Pliny the Elder, and roughly 140 others. The Gospels were written in the same Greco-Roman biographical tradition that recorded the lives of Caesar, Alexander the Great, and King Herod for over 1,000 years. In structure, theme, eyewitness testimony, and attention to time, place, and public events, they follow the standard methods used to preserve history in the ancient world. They were not written as myth, allegory, or symbolic fiction, but as serious accounts of real events. In an age without cameras, recordings, or live media, written testimony was history, and the Gospels were written to fulfill that role, recording the reality of what happened as fact and not fiction. In Part 2, we'll trace the historical path that leads to the evidence. We'll examine why the Gospels survive in unprecedented numbers, and how early those copies appear in history. We'll look at errors and mistakes, and why differences between copies don't weaken the message, but help confirm their accuracy. Then we turn to the study of memory and eyewitness testimony, long before words were written down. All this evidence leads to one question: are the Gospels we have today the same as the originals?